It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Wednesday, March 13th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that, despite some of the sloppiness, I just loved that game against the Sharks.
Ooh, I don't know.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here each and every day with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. We are at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter as well. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. You can find us over on YouTube, or on the SiriusXM app, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, we're going to get to a snippet of a conversation you had with Oliver Bonk later in the show, so stay tuned for that. It's really cool. But now I do want to talk about that Flyers versus Sharks game, because I think it's mostly because they wound up winning the game that I can now sit and say that was a lot of fun. And I will tell you why it was fun. Number one, you had Cam Atkinson, Nick Delorier scratched, right? Now, Adam Jennings was scratched, but fine. That was kind of to be expected. It was an emergency call-up, and they still played with 6D, so I'll take it. They split up Staal and Johnson on different pairings like we asked to.
Right.
And we had the younger side of the Flyers on the forward side of things. And for me, this is the lineup I wanted to see, for the most part, against the Sharks, which are a weaker team. If you're going to go for it along those lines, go for it against the Sharks, right?
Yes. No, I mean, that's true. And oddly enough, it was a lot of the veterans that were fouling up in this game. I mean, again, we said, look, Morgan Frost has been good all year on the power play. He has the most points, yet Torts singled him out. I'm not sure why. Okay. Delorier, and it's
great
actually
game,
good.
Morgan Frost. Great game.
Yeah, it was very good that Delorier and Atkinson weren't in that, because the speed of the game, I think, would have been a problem. But I have to tell you, I would much rather have Ollie Lycksell in there than Gurianov. Gurianov's hockey sense is nil. He was passing the puck to the Sharks most of the time. He had one good shot on net, but I got to tell you, this is not the same guy that scored 20 goals a few years ago. This guy's not sure what to do with the puck. And he just has that one move like Panarin, where he's just going to curl back and hope nobody's covering him. And they are. I don't know. I don't understand what the Flyers see in him. But the game got a little worrisome. It did, because I'm not even sure the Sharks have won a season series this year, and they were in this game the entire time. So that's the bad part. Even if you play the young guys, you should have been able to separate it a little more. And remember, you're playing the Leafs next. That's going from one end of the spectrum to the other.
Sure, absolutely. Get it. However, I think that this was a good game to get some of the kinks out with the lineup the way it is, right? And so we saw they had a ton of chances in this game. And, especially on the power play, which I'm including the 6-on-5 on that, they had 17 scoring chances for. They didn't go. I understand that. That's the thing in the back of my head, that is a little bit of the negative because of the lack of finish there. But that being said, I felt like their man advantage time looked significantly better. I liked the unit with Brink, Lotz, Zamula, Gurianov, and Forster. I think they had some really good quality chances. I think that that's something I want to see more of, even considering your point about Gurianov, which I agree with. Again, I'm just the negatives to me just didn't matter as much in the long run here for me. And I think that, okay, now they've kind of, felt themselves as the younger Flyers guys. And then you can take that energy And especially that energy from the beginning of the third period where it was just a shooting gallery. You can take that into Toronto and do something with that.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that part of it, but I do think the power play looked better. It still didn't perform like you said, but it looked better.
Mhm.
So I'm with you on that. I'm not going to disagree on that. And Ersson had a fine game. I mean, he made a big save on Barabanov, no question. That imagine if that went in. Like I'm just saying, there were too many moments where San Jose, and honestly, we all felt through two periods. Had San Jose been a little bit of a better team, they'd have been in the lead. Like everybody I was sitting next to felt
Oh,
that.
100%,
Yeah,
100%. I don't
yeah.
care if they won the game. And
I know, but if you play the same way the next game, they're going to be in trouble.
right, but I'm saying this is a good base to build off of for the next game where you button up those mistakes, right? And not only did Morgan Frost have a great game, Owen Tippett got back on the board. The pass from TK was extraordinary.
That was a
And
great play, but he didn't have a great game. There were times, the thing about Owen Tippett, we were talking about this in the press box, like he got a goal and TK made that play, right? But he is lost at times in the defensive zone, doesn't know what to do. And now lately, and especially in this game, he was literally just looking to take the puck the other way and not even play any defense. So he's got a lot of work to do. That kind of stuff's not going to work against a lot of other teams.
sure, fine, don't care. He got back on the board, which I think is important for him,
Okay.
very specifically, and I think that'll help. And, like, Joel Farabee just doing his thing,
No, he had a good game.
he had a
Farabee
great
looked good.
game. Yeah, and, that of course, that pass from Morgan Frost, again,
Yeah.
another great pass in this game
Yeah.
from a guy, and there was, like, a point in time where Frost was, like, kinda circling around and cycling the puck on his own and made a couple
Yeah.
good dekes, like, he's just so smart like that, but
He is.
I just really feel like getting Tippett back on the board, even if there were some downsides to his game, overshadowed the downsides to his game in this one. And I think, to your point, Sam Ersson having a really good game was important. We talked about that on yesterday's show that I
Yes.
think under normal circumstances, this would have been a Felix Sandstrom start.
Yeah.
However, you needed to get Ersson back on the horse after that game in Tampa, and it was the right move to make 100%.
Yeah. The other thing, and again, Erik Johnson had a fairly good game. The other thing
Mhm.
they've got to watch out for, though, is you got to take Hathaway off the second line. I'm telling you, it is going to lead to bad penalties and trouble. There were times where he got away with a few. And again, I just don't think playing him, and I'm not sure how many minutes he played tonight, but I feel like he played too many.
Yeah, I think that, when it was gonna be a blatant penalty and he walked away, that was a very good thing. However, I do think there is something to what you're saying in terms of him potentially causing, too many penalties. And
Against the
the
better teams. Yeah,
right, right. And the Flyers took too many penalties in this game. That
they
long
did.
stretch in the second was not great when they had to
No.
be on the PK for like 4 solid minutes.
Yeah.
Which obviously led to that tying goal. I mean, there's issues here again, but I'm just going to be happy about it because I don't care because they won the game.
No, I mean, it's fine. They got to 2 points. We'll see
Yeah.
what happens next game. I get it.
Yeah. No, they're just shaking it off. This was the shake off the Tampa loss game.
Okay. That's fair.
And that's how I feel about it really strongly. And, love to see that look on Owen Tippett's face, love to see a smile on Morgan Frost's face. I think this is a really good effort overall. And just an important game for them stylistically. And yeah, definitely didn't go perfectly, far from it, but they got there in the end, and that's all that counts in my
Yep.
world right
It's a
now.
win. That's all I'm going to say. It was a win.
A win is a win is a win. All right. Well, as promised, we are going to discuss Oliver Bonk. And Russ, you talked to him a little bit, so we'll get to that as well. We'll do that coming up next. It's a very important point in the season, Flyers fans. The team is still in a playoff hunt, but regardless of where we are in the current standings, I want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy hockey app of the Locked On NHL network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. You can also play daily fantasy NFL, NBA, MLB, and college football, and entries can be made in under a minute. All you have to do is pick whether NHL superstars like Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, or Austin Matthews, plus Flyers standouts like Travis Konechny, will record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in any given game. To win 100 times bet on Sleeper, you have to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, you can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper, so start paying attention, nail those picks so you can start winning big. Use the promo code Locked On and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code Locked On NHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability.
Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts, for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers.
On tomorrow's show, we will, of course, preview the matchup against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Plus, we're going to do a prospect profile for John Mustard, who's a forward currently in the USHL and is a draft eligible prospect. Oliver Bonk, thought it was a good time to check in on him as the season is waning, and he's having a pretty good year. Of course, he was the 22nd overall pick in last year's draft, the second of the first round picks for the Flyers. He signed an ELC last summer, so we're already set there. His season, again, just so well done by him. He's got more than a point per game as of now. And as a defenseman, he's fifth in points and points per game in the OHL, second in goals overall. And in his last 27 games since January 1st, he's a plus 26 overall, and he was a minus only twice of those 27 games. That's pretty solid.
Yeah, he's having a heck of a year. It's just, like I said, I don't know what the function of playing the bumper will translate into the NHL because he's got 24 goals. The year before he had 10. So he's probably a 12 to 15 goal a guy year, which is normal. But if he gets set up that way and all of a sudden he's great at it, hey, he might get more. I don't know. That's the interesting thing. He's 6'2" now. He has got to get stronger, right? He could do this at the junior level right now, but he wouldn't be able to do this, I don't think, yet at the NHL level until he puts on more muscle. So I think it depends which Oliver Bonk you want. I think he could be in the NHL in 2 years just as a regular defenseman, not playing in the bumper, right? And they may choose for that.
Right.
And it's really going to be how the team decides how they're going to deploy him.
Right. And I'm just wondering, having signed the ELC, like he has a big decision to make in this off season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is he going to do next?
Well, he turns 20 after January, which I think is too late for the
It
AHL.
might be.
It seems like it's a little late for the AHL next year. So I think he's going back to London for one more year. That's what I think is going to happen. Then after that, I think he'll go to the AHL and see, you got to just see how he is down there. He may be ready to come up in half a season, but I think that's what we're looking at here.
Do you think it would be worth it for him to burn a little bit of his ELC and play at the tail end of next year for the Phantoms, or should he just wait until the following year?
Well, I don't think they have to burn it if they like ATO him, right? I think they can do that.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe.
And then he could just kind of do it that way and get his feet wet. I think that might be the better way.
Yeah, I mean, it may not come up if London is still as good as they are and they go all
Which
the
they
way to the
usually
Memorial
are.
Cup again.
Right.
But it just seems like he has a really good path, and being on a team like London and having the success he's having, it is also very good for him, right?
Yeah, it is. It's very good for him. London runs everything like a pro program, so that's great. And yeah, the fans are great. It's a good building. I've been there many times. I love it. Love the atmosphere. So yes, if they can get to the Memorial Cup, that's huge. There's so much focus on these young guys in the Memorial Cup that it's as good as any other playoffs as far as getting experience.
So I think, with him, the Flyers are in a really good position as far as his development. Um, but I do think, we talk about, is there going to be a spot for him? And that's something the Flyers are going to have to do in terms of, carving out that roster space.
That's going to be the tricky part, and I think they have another year to kind of figure that out. So if they lose Risto along next year at some point, whether it's before the season starts or at the deadline, that's something. Then that frees up another future spot. And if they, do one more thing, whether that's Marc Staal or somebody else, then I think the spot will be there for him when he's ready. But in the interim, like we've talked about, you've got these other young defensemen that are waiting for those spots anyhow, and then he really competes against them instead of grizzled veterans, because there's no problem with starting him on the third pairing, second power play, and see how
Right.
he does.
You got to talk to him recently.
I did.
And you talked to him a little bit about his skating and playing in the bumper spot and all that. We're going to play that audio for y'all, and just tee it up a little bit for us, Russ.
Yeah, it's just we were talking about a product called Mars Blade, who he originally just kind of like tried it out and took a video and really took a liking to it, and now loves it, and talked about the benefits of it. And then we got into his season a little bit and playing in the bumper, of course.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to play that for y'all right now. And then after that, we will come back and answer your mailbag questions.
So Oliver, they were talking about Per was talking about a testimonial you did, and you tried the skates, and then all of a sudden you wanted to wear the skates. Give me an idea of how that happened.
Yeah, it just happened in the summer with my skating coach. I was kind of just like, I don't know, just normal skating. And then one day she gave me like an option to come in the morning, try these new like blades. She thought it was something I might like. So I tried them out in the morning, and then I actually really liked them. So I was surprised how much I liked them at first. So then the Mars Blade guys put them on my skates for that practice later that day. So and then I never really got out of them. It was kind of just getting used to them for a couple weeks, and then I used them in a tournament that summer for the Hlinka Gretzky Cup, so they were good.
So, and yeah, as far as the blade, it didn't feel any different to start. It just felt better when you started to use them. Was that what it was?
Yeah, well, of course, like it felt different. There was kind of getting used to it, but it wasn't like there was no like downsides to it that you had to kind of like say like, okay, it's not as good as this. There's no really downsides. It's just kind of getting used to your blade moving, which 14 years of hockey kind of teaches your blade's not supposed to move, but then it starts moving. So you kind of gotta get used to it with your stride. But after that, like just feels more natural now. It feels like you got a bit more pop, so it's good.
Now, as a defenseman, you've got to be fast in transition. How do you think these skates are helping you with that?
Yeah, I think they're a big part of that. I think you get a good kind of almost like a slingshot off when you're transferring your weight around. So I think it definitely helps me.
And then the C cuts, there's a study that it says like it's helping you your edges. Do you feel like in a game it's helping you with your edge work?
Yeah, definitely. As I was saying with the transition, and definitely the C cuts too. Like as you get older and older, and the guys get better and better, you can't be crossing over as a defenseman because good players will read it and kind of expose you for it. So definitely seat cuts are a big part, and I've hadn't had any problems like seat cutting or anything like that.
So how many blades do you go through in the season? Like how many sets of blades?
Probably around six sets. We rotate like three pairs the half the season, and then we'll switch it over for the next half, and then maybe playoffs. I got another set, so maybe 3 to 9 sets of blades.
Just a basic hockey question for this season.
It's going pretty good actually. Like we were in first place for most of the time. I think we lost yesterday, so we kind of lost first place there, but we still have a goal to go as deep as we can in playoffs, try to win the Memorial Cup. So we're obviously in playoffs now, just trying to finish out the last 8 games, try to win out, see if we can get first place. It's big in the playoffs to get home ice and home advantage. So season's been going pretty well. Team's doing well, so that's all that's really important.
Give me the idea of the origin of you playing in the bumper. Like, was that something that the coaching staff did? Did you do it in practice by accident? Obviously, Philly, I cover in Philly, and everybody, found out about it. It was kind of a thing.
Yeah. Well, they had Alec Regula used to play for the Knights before me, and when I got drafted, I came in. They kind of made the soft comparison that my game kind of resembled his, but it was kind of maybe like just because he was a Knight. And then whatever. I went through my first year, obviously didn't play on the team. Second year, I was top of the power play, normal defenseman stuff. And then this year, we were playing might have been a 6-on-5 in practice, and then I just kind of found myself in there. It was just natural for me, and they had Alec Regula in that spot a couple years ago, and I think he scored like 25 goals that season, had a lot of goals that season. So we just kind of tried it out, and I had a Jacob Julian who can really pass the puck from down low, so it helps a lot when you have that guy. But yeah, it was just really natural spot for me, and then it just kind of stuck.
And as far as the skates, have any teammates noticed, asked you about them? Because I know hockey players are generally pretty set on their skates, like, right? You're like, yeah. Usually it's hard to change a guy.
Yeah, I've changed actually. One of the guys on our team, Will Nickel, he's from Ottawa too. He changed over either this year or this summer. He changed over to Mars Blades. He's in them now. Then one of our overagers, Caleb Lawrence. I can't take credit for changing him over. He came from Ottawa, but he was already in the Mars Blades. So we got 3 Mars Blade guys on the team right now.
Okay.
Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You could even pick who's going to win it all. Maybe look at some of the women's games. They're pretty exciting. You could always go with Caitlin Clark scoring the most and kind of go from there. Just visit fanduel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets.
Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus national shows covering every league like Locked On NHL. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe. Really good questions here, starting with Bill saying, do you think Sean Couturier is in a sophomore slump of sorts because of the 2 years off?
I mean, seems that way. I don't know if I would term it that way, but I get the methodology and how you got there. So yeah, it does seem that way. And I think he's doing everything he can. We know that. It's just, it's just is what it is right now.
Yeah, I think it's also hard to do this when you're a little bit older. Compared to when you're younger, a sophomore slump might be when you're 22 or 23. It's a lot different when you're doing it when you're 30.
Right. Oh yeah. No, it's a lot different when you're 30, and he was never the greatest skater anyhow. So now, you're in a faster skating league. We see him getting worn down at the end of shifts where he's not skating things out. But, when it's in a half court game, he's still winning puck battles and gets to the net, wins faceoffs, and does well in the shootout. So there's still some, really good parts of his game. It's just with no speed there and the endurance probably being a little bit of an issue. Yeah,
James commented, Ryan Johansen could be a second or third line center for rebuilding teams like San Jose or Chicago, that they could potentially trade him to. They're maybe looking for a veteran center. Why do you think they weren't able to do it at the deadline, and will they be able to in the offseason?
No, I think they're going to have to buy him out. I think teams don't even want him at that price. I think he's going to have to reprove himself all over again. He's just, in his last few places, he's done well in the regular season, and he's not impressed in the playoffs. And I think that's a part of it.
Yeah, Elliot Friedman on 32 Thoughts talked about, some potential hard feelings because he is the same agent as Cutter Gauthier, and there could be a connection there.
But that's, again, that has nothing to do with what happened with he and John. It's all pre-Cutter Gauthier, so I don't buy it.
It just added to it, I guess, is his point.
Did it? I don't know. I don't know that for sure.
Yeah, I don't either. Just had to mention it because it was out there.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, and so we'll see what happens. But we have another question coming up next that is somewhat related to that, because Stephen wanted to know, what do we do about Cam Atkinson with one more year left on the deal? We can't buy out everyone. With Cal Peterson on the table, Ryan Johansen on the table, like, what do we do here with Cam?
You have to hope that he gets a little better in the offseason, because this is the first season since the neck surgery, neck fusion. We talked about that neck fusion. It definitely cuts down on what you could do offensively as a player. Whereas what Jack Eichel got with that whole artificial disc does seem like it's better. But Cam didn't have time to think about it. Like, his neck was getting bad and he had to do it. So I'm not saying he did the wrong thing. No, he had to do what he had to do. But just like Tyler Johnson's, also his offense isn't the same anymore either. And I think he's had similar surgery. So you just have to hope that he could rebound a little more. But if he doesn't have a good year, he's going to ride it out with the season and during the season, or they're going to have to give a sweetener to get rid of him. But he's a good guy. So I think they'll probably just ride it out with him and hope they get more offense, because if he's not having a good year, they won't be able to trade him at the deadline. They just won't.
Yeah, I think so. I think they're basically stuck with Cam Atkinson. And
It's
again,
a
he is a
long-winded
good
way
guy.
of saying that, Rachel. I
Yeah.
was trying to,
Yeah. Well, but it was good reasoning. So
Yeah.
it's important to say how you got there. Show your work, as they say in math class. But I think that, it's going to be tough, and there's just no room to buy out a ton of people for the
No.
Flyers, because they already have so much dead cap space. And so I think that this is just one of the situations where they're going to have to bite the bullet or trade him and maybe retain a little, or add a sweetener to not retain
Right.
and go from there. Also related to this, Brendan wants to know, do you think they'll bring back Marc Staal next year in the same role, or will Erik Johnson take that role, or will they look elsewhere?
Erik Johnson, I'm pretty sure, is going to retire. Marc Staal, I don't think they'll bring back in the same role. You never know. He might retire too. Me personally, I don't think they should bring back anybody else in that role. Like, if you wanted to say this year was a success with the culture, fine. Then moving forward, move some of the young guys into the culture, like with whatever they picked up this year from those guys. So I don't think you need anybody in that spot. Remember, you still got to figure out what Drysdale's doing. You still got to figure out what Risto is doing. Like, there's a lot of guys to work in there.
Yeah, and I almost think like Risto is approaching that role now, right?
Right.
Assuming he's healthy. I think that,
Yes.
The culture aspect of it is established, to your point.
Yeah.
I think that they don't need anybody in that role. I think that they will sign somebody in that role anyway, but I don't think they need it.
Yeah, they might.
But I think they're going to go to the open market though and sign a
Right.
veteran defenseman. I'm pretty confident in that, but we'll see. Last question. Micah wants to know about goaltending. Do you think the Flyers should try and get a goaltender this offseason that can play more games, that could be a 1A in a pinch, or go for an older Martin Jones type that's fine in a backup role? Or do you want to give Sandstrom a shot for the rest of the season and decide then?
Yeah, I have to give Sandstrom a shot for the rest of the season and decide then, because so far he's passing the test. hopefully the Flyers are looking at him as a possibility for next year. Again, we'll see how Sam Ersson, finishes out this season. If he finishes it out, even if they don't make the playoffs, but they're close and he finishes it out that way, I think you could roll with these two guys. I have no problem with it because there won't be a Stanley Cup expectation next year anyhow. So I think that's fine, and that could be good for everybody. If for some reason Urson really, starts to stumble down the stretch, then they might have to bring in somebody and not retain Sandstrom so that this other one could be a 1A and he could be a 1B. But you don't
Yeah.
know that until you find out more of this season.
Right. And I'm not sure there's anyone out there that could fit the bill exactly that isn't going to be too much money. That's
Well, that's the whole
really
thing. They're all going to be like, even if it's, Merzlikins, he would be too much money. So you're right.
Brossoit would be too much money.
Right. I mean, Ned Jelkovic was a guy that got thrown around. You could get him for a season. He would be affordable. So yeah, there's some affordable guys, but not many.
Right. And I just don't know that the Flyers want to get into that bidding war in this circumstance.
Yeah, I don't think they're there yet.
All right. Well, that will do it for today's show. On tomorrow's show, we will be talking about John Mustard and we will preview the game against the Leafs. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So if you've got questions you want us to answer on the show, like we did today, you can send them in via Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Have a great day, everyone.